cactus and succulent growers, I'm Lynn, and welcome to Desert Plants of Avalon. And today this is going to be part of an ongoing series where I talk about my very special golden oldies that I've had a long time in my collection. And today's video is going to be all about my Rebutia albipilosa, how long I've grown it and the history and how I care for it. So then guys, this Rebutia albipilosa is one that I have grown for 28 years. I first got this lovely, fluffy, woody wonder when I was 25 years old, and I got it from a garden centre called Cactus when I lived in England. And Cactus is a chain of garden centres. I'm sure many of you in the UK will be familiar with Cactus. The one I bought this from is still there today. And I saw it and I just thought, wow, that is absolutely gorgeous cactus. Because at the time it didn't have all of these multiple pups. It was just one pup, probably around this size, growing in a 5 centimetre little tot pot. And it was all wrapped in sort of yellow, gorgeous whipped type of fur. And I thought, that is really gorgeous. And it was labelled as Rebutia albipilosa. Didn't really know much about this particular Rebutia at the time. So I got it back, I repotted it, and I had it in my little sunny window when I lived in England. And then when I moved over to another house, I then got a little tiny greenhouse, glass greenhouse, and I had that in there. And it didn't do a lot for a while, it just sort of got a bit bigger. And then over the years it formed pups. And then this moved over with me when I moved to Ireland in 2006, to the south of Ireland, over to Sligo, and I had that there in my sunny window. And then I had a little greenhouse, I put it out there, and it has gone through multiple house moves with me, as I've mentioned, with quite a few of my golden oldies. And then it burst into flower for the very, very first time, probably about 12 years ago. And it produced an absolute abundance of a bouquet of the most gorgeous, stunning, beautiful, orangey, deep orange blooms. And it flowered like that for every year while it was keep going to produce these multiple pups. And it is one that is an absolutely stunning bloomer. Out of all the Rebutias, this is probably my most favourite one in my collection. It's also a cactus because of the history behind it as well. I've had it for so long. Also one of my very special golden oldies. It's still small when you think I've had it for 28 years, but remember it was just a little pup when I first got it. And Rebutias, if you're familiar with Rebutias and you grow them, they are very small growing plants. They're compact growers, so they're absolutely brilliant if you don't have a lot of space for cacti. And they're great for windowsill collections and apartments and things like that, because they're not tall growing cacti. They stay compact and they tend to form these gorgeous little pups over time, as you can see here. I'll just turn this round, you can see what an awesome hairy one it is. And the yellow wool over time sort of went more white. It still does go a lot more yellow, the wool, in the summertime when we get lots of strong sun. It will yellow up, but it's a beautiful bloomer. Now sadly this sort of stopped blooming for me the past few years, and I couldn't work out why, because it had a good root system and everything. And then I realised it has got knocked back over the years with Spidermite damage, and I always treat it with neem oil and it recovers. Those of you who know Rebutias know they are Spidermite magnets. Not tend to be a problem with mealybug, but Spidermites, they love Rebutias because they're very soft skinned type of cacti. But they recover well if you treat them quick enough. And I think being knocked back a few times, it sort of forms that scab at the growing tip, and it didn't flower. But this last year, this has come on really well. I gave it a fresh repot, and all this new growth here is all the new growth. So I really hope to see the stunning flowers again. As you can see, I'm going to show you a photograph now just how awesomely beautiful the flowers are on this particular Rebutia. It is like a bouquet of the most stunning flowers. It's also very easy growing Rebutia. Rebutias are such easy growing plants. They'll even flower in an indirect more light as well. They don't have to have scorching sun. In fact, Rebutias prefer a little bit more of a light sun or a bit of indirect sun. They're very easy bloomers as long as you can keep an eye on Spidermite. So then, how do you care for these and how do I care for mine? Well, as I mentioned, I've had mine for 28 years and it's still going. Had a couple of knocks from Spidermite, as I mentioned, but other than that, it's been multiple clumping that has flowered beautifully over the years for me. Now, I keep this cool and dry at this time of year, which is January. So if you're watching this video in the future, you know, I keep this dry over the winter time. I stop watering from the middle of September up until sort of like the beginning to middle of April, depending on how the weather is and the temperatures. Keep it bone dry. Some people might say Rebutias can be given a little bit of water, but I keep mine dry purely because I keep it here in my polytunnel, which is kept at 5 Celsius, 41 Fahrenheit minimum. So it's cool, so I keep it dry. If you have these indoors in a warm house to overwinter, you can give a wee light watering every 6 weeks to 2 months over the winter just to stop the roots dying back. But it's again, they perk up really well in the springtime once you give them their watering. That's usually when they burst into flower as well. Anything from the April time up until all through the summer. Sometimes they'll flower multiple times a year. I also give this a wee bit of tomato fertiliser, and I use it at half the strength that they recommend using for tomatoes. Could be any particular brand if it's a good brand. The high potassium helps to encourage more flowering as well, and I use that with all my cacti and succulents. I think it really makes a difference, and they use that with every third watering I give them from the April time to the sort of August time, and it seems to do really, really, really well. Now, I pot this. Rebutias can be a little bit rock prone, so a very well draining cactus soil is what I give to this one. I use 3 equal parts of loam based soil, LOAM, and I use a brand by Clover, but any good quality John Innes number 2 or 3 is great. And as I mentioned, I use it with 3 equal parts of grit and horticultural sand, and it seems to do really well with these Rebutias. Over the spring and summer, when I start watering from the April time, I make sure I thoroughly water. With this particular one that is very sort of overhanging with the pot, I would use the method what I call dip and dop. I'll fill a little bucket up, wee bit of tomato feed with every third watering, and I would dip it in so it actually thoroughly soaks up the pot, and then I let it totally dry out before I water again. You can usually feel by the weight if it needs to be watered, but I never would keep watering. They don't like to be kept wet permanently over the spring and summer, so make sure you dry it out in between waterings. Dip and dopping, as in dipping it into the bucket and letting it soak up and then letting it dry, and then before you water again. Is especially good, important with clay pots because they tend to dry out much quicker than plastic pots, so it really does depend on the pot, but always make sure that you only water when the soil has dried out from April up until sort of August, middle of September maximum, and then I let it dry over the winter time. And that's pretty much it. Keeping an eye on pests, obviously mealybugs, Spidermite. Biggest one would be Spidermite with Rebutias. I like to use neem oil mixed with horticultural soap, and with that helps to get rid of meal. Not only Spidermite, help to prevent as well. So that works well, and I will use that once a month. I'll come in the polytunnel, spray all the plants. It keeps on top of it as well. And that's pretty much it. It's a very easy growing cactus. As I say, it's great if you don't have lots of space because it's a compact grower, great for windowsills as well, and apartments, and also is a very great greenhouse plant as well because they're very cold hardy. So although I keep my greenhouse here, the polytunnel, at 5C, 41 Fahrenheit, Rebutias can even go lower than that if they're kept totally dry over the winter. They're tough little cookies, so they're a good all-rounder, absolutely awesome cactus. And as you can see from the photographs I shared of this beautiful Rebutia albipilosa, if you want to add a stunning beautiful cactus to your collection, that is a gorgeous bloomer, easy to grow, one that is Also does not bite you, so it's great to have around pets and young children as well. You're not going to get bitten. It's a safe one. Then Rebutia albipilosa is a really good one I can recommend, as a lot of the Rebutias. So there you go, 28 years in my collection. It's a very special one, and a lot of my cacti that I've had for a long time are part of my family. They really are. It's like, I know it sounds balmy, guys, but they've been with me through thick and thin, as they say. They are just my beauts. So stay tuned for lots more little history stories about how long I've grown a lot of my plants and the history behind them. And as I say, this is one that deserved its own little video because it's a very special one. So thank you so much for watching, everyone, and for lots more tips and tricks, do please subscribe, click the notification bell, and most importantly, give this video a like. Leave a comment in the comments down below, even a heart or smiley face, because every comment really does help the algorithm. So guys, check out my website too for lots of growing tips on there, many articles on growing cacti and succulents, desertplantsofAvalon.com. And I want to wish you all a hairy fairy, wonderful blooming cactus powered day.